Focus on me. Focus on me. Old Ariana Grande song that was like, when it first came out, I was like, what is this? I still am like, what is this?
What?
I don't even know if you know that song.
Nope, don't know it.
It's just kind of weird.
Because I live under a rock.
Well, you know some of her stuff. She just dropped an album on Friday. Also, random fun fact, Vanessa Hudgens is pregnant.
What?
Yeah. She's apparently married and like was walking on the red carpet for the Oscars and she's just like full on bump. And I was like, oh my God, Ashton's pregnant at the same time as Vanessa Hudgens.
Oh my gosh, iconic. Man, that just makes my pregnancy so much better.
It's
knowing
so
that.
much more special.
I'm in it with Vanessa Hudgens.
Also, random, Robert Pattinson from Twilight, he's with this girl, Suki Waterhouse, who, I don't think they're married, but she's also expecting a baby with him.
Oh.
So, like, you're pregnant at the same time as Robert Pattinson's baby mama.
Jordan's always updating me on all of the trivia. She's keeping me young.
Yep. Suki Waterhouse was in that show with the Daisy Jones and the Six. She was the piano player.
Oh, yeah. I remember I discovered they were dating.
Yeah.
Shortly after watching that, and I was shook to the core.
Shook to the core.
They're so cute. Mm-hmm. I'm Ashton Smith.
And I'm Jordan Long.
And we're coming in hot. We're 7th generation entrepreneurs with a passion for fusing creative expression and business fundamentals to help entrepreneurs powerfully expand their companies.
Legacy Creator is a show for creatives, big thinkers, and visionaries who are doing business differently. Together, we unpack topics to help you embody your creative identity, develop as a leader, and powerfully grow your business.
In a nutshell, we're calling you out and calling you higher.
What a random way to start this episode.
Now that you're all up to date, actually, those are things you probably already knew, but you just got to witness me discovering them for the first time because I live under a rock.
Yeah.
Jordan keeps me young.
It's probably better that way. You're just like keeping your peace, you know? You're not worried about
I know nothing. I know nothing about what celebrities are doing.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So now that we're all up to date on all of those things, welcome back to Legacy Creator. We're so excited. I feel like that was just such an amazing way to set the tone and start this conversation because we're talking about the wild, wild west of the online space. Mm-hmm. We're talking about how it gets crazy up in here sometimes. There's always things going on. There's some shady things happening. You never know what you're going to see. The truth is the online space, it is not a controlled environment. You don't have people going around checking on every little thing. I guess you do kind of have fact checkers in some sense, but it's not truly controlled, which can lead to marketing that lacks a whole lot of context. And that's really what we want to hit on today. There's a lot of content, a lot of marketing rhetoric in the online space where it's just lacking context. Sometimes there are half-truths being thrown out, which at the end of the day, if something is a half-truth, is it a truth?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got it for me personally. I'm like, it's kind of a lie. It's, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're only telling part of the story, it's misleading. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's a good way to put it. It's misleading. And I think this is harmful in the business environment for multiple reasons. I mean, number one, it's just not good business. So it's not good for your company. It's not good for your reputation. Number two, it's off-putting to your community. So if your community finds out that in a way you've been withholding important information, in some ways maybe lying to them, not telling the full truth, that's going to really harm the perception of your brand. That's going to harm the way that your community feels about you and your brand. And then also it's destructive to onlookers, to people who are aspiring to like run their own business, who really don't know any better. It creates this environment of just so many unrealistic expectations in the online space for people who are in business, but also for people who are aspiring business owners. And really, a lot of this just stems from unethical marketing. And that's what we want to touch on today. We want to call this community higher and into more transparency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about the title of this episode. It's pretty intense. It's pretty, in your face. And I was like, I kind of wanted to touch on that before we get started because there's a reason why when you're in a court setting, you are sworn in under oath saying that you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. And in doing that, when you do tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you're providing context for the jury. You're providing a full picture and an accurate depiction for them to make the call on whether a person is guilty or not. Even the tiniest details being omitted from someone's testimony could change the verdict from guilty to not guilty and vice versa. So in the context of this, we're talking about marketing. I am not saying to put everything out there and tell like every nitty-gritty detail, but it's a matter of providing an accurate depiction for people and a full picture to provide more context instead of maybe, you know, sharing half-truths in your marketing in an effort to like get people in, you know. It's all about being ethical about it, you know.
Yeah, it's all about being ethical. It's all about conducting yourself away in the open, like in the online space, as you would behind closed doors, vice versa. Like we want to make sure that we're bringing the most integrity into our brand presence and the way that we're marketing ourselves online. And really, I think we've all seen things in the online space where we're like, is that true? That doesn't really like provide this piece of context. It can be a little bit off-putting, and worse, we've all experienced maybe a brand, a person, a team that says one thing, markets one thing, but then your experience or what you've heard is entirely different. And we just want to disrupt all of that today, and we really want to raise the collective standard around marketing in the online space. We want to call all of us as a collective higher, because Lord knows there's some shady things happening. There's some people out there doing some shady things, and we don't want to be those people. We don't want you to be those people. We don't want you to partner up with those people. So let's just have an open, honest dialogue and conversation around this. So there was a time where flashy marketing lacking context performed really well. This was the time where a lot of people were pushing predominantly lifestyle-based marketing to kind of showcase possibilities for their community. And we're not, against this. Some of this is still in action today. Some of it works really well and it's effective. And I think we do a little bit of lifestyle marketing as well. So it can work. It's not inherently bad. But what we have noticed over the years is that people in the online space are wanting much more context. They're wanting much more depth. They have a lot more questions because the online space has changed a lot over the last few years. You had a huge influx with COVID. You had, a lot of people making a lot of investments, not asking that many questions, which resulted in a lot of people getting burned, a lot of people that were maybe not as experienced as they communicated, entering the space, marketing in a way that they couldn't really deliver on the back end. So there's just like a lot of things that took place that have led consumers, potential customers to ask more questions, to be more aware. And I think some of that's really good. We should be informed. We should ask questions. And just because someone says, I had 100K cash week, doesn't mean that I'm going to have no more questions and I'm going to make an investment in you because you made a lot of money. There's a lot more that goes into that. So, people don't just want to know about that high cash month. They want to know, okay, well, what was the overall profitability? They don't really want to know, okay, how fast did you grow your company? Oh, 6 months, you got to 7 figures in 6 months. No, they actually want to know what was that timeline in detail and what was your lifestyle like as you built that, right? And they don't just want to know your revenue projections. They want to know what those projections are based on. And that is a huge pet peeve of mine. I've been seeing so many people share projections in the online space, but again, it's not a controlled environment. And so some people are sharing projections that aren't really based on anything other than what they think would be amazing to hit. That is not necessarily like a true rooted projection. So again, people have more questions. They are much more curious and they want more context. They want more depth from you to feel confident in your brand and to feel confident in investing and working with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with the way the internet is now, there's so much information, and I feel like users and the average person is much more critical. They have a critical eye for things, and people are more curious and they're asking more questions and they're like, what is the full picture here? Because I think people are better at spotting when it's like kind of fake. I think they're better at spotting when something might not be like totally honest and might not be the full picture. Again, like they're much more critical. So I think it's important to take that into account. Like just be honest in your marketing up front, you know?
Yeah. Again, like I think what we've been through over the last few years, it's made people more skeptical.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming them for that, because there's a lot of people who have been burned in the online space. There's a lot of people that talk about people who know how to market but don't know how to deliver. And so what we want to do is want to make sure that your marketing is aligning with who you are, who your brand is, and what you're able to deliver on. We want to make sure that it's honest, that it's open. You don't have to disclose every little teeny tiny thing, but we want it to be out of integrity and we want it to be ethical. And that's really what we're striving for with this conversation.
Yeah. And I think providing context also allows the user to see you as like a real human being, and they can kind of relate to you a little more. Like you were just saying about, you know, high cash months. Maybe you had like a really high cash month, but you're also being real with them about like how profitable you were. That for a user, they're going to be like, okay, like I see you, like you're being real with me, you're being transparent, and I relate to that. You know, I feel like that boils down to like human connection, I think, through the internet. Yeah, they want to be able to relate and feel like they're actually working with, communicating with, and talking to like real people. I think that's something a lot of people are craving in general. And when you provide more context for people, it just shows that you're being real, you're being honest, you're not being shady about it. And, you know, one thing I thought of was we have gotten some praise for like how consistent we are with our content and how much, you know, content we're putting out on a consistent basis. And we always like to tell people that there's two of us working on the content. You know, so if you're like a one-woman show and you're a solopreneur and you're doing it by yourself, you might not be able to reach that standard because there's two of us working on it, you know? So we always like to provide context for people to paint a full picture so they can set realistic expectations for themselves and not feel like they have to live up to an unrealistic precedent that we've set, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember so many times when I was just getting started where, you know, I would feel like I needed to create so much content to be successful online, and you see a lot of brands telling you the frequency they recommend, what they do, but you're not often seeing a full picture of like the infrastructure and the team required in order to facilitate on that, so that it's not just posting for the sake of posting, but it's actually quality, it's high caliber, it's effective. And so literally Jordan's position full time is on our content. It's on the visuals of our brand. And there's more that she even does beyond that, but that's like the core of her position. So when people, you know, ask about how are you so consistent, we're not going to leave the fact out that there's two of us working on content together. And we don't even handle the technical side of our business. Josh handles that side of the business. So we like to provide context because it allows people to relate and to be able to say, oh, I understand how you're getting that done. That actually makes sense. Sometimes if you try to look too perfect and you leave out these details, people like cannot get on your level. They can't relate to you. They don't really care about, you know, how perfect, how amazing, how much of an authority you are. They want to actually understand how something's getting done. And if you make yourself so out of reach and out of touch where everything's just magical, people don't get it. They're like, well, I don't understand. Like, how'd you hit that number? Or how are you getting that done so consistently? They truly want context and answers at this stage in the online space. And people are going to respect you so much more for just being transparent and honest. It's relatable. And also it educates people. It gives people a realistic picture to work towards if that's something they want to create. So let's be truly helpful when we answer questions like that. What if you could turn your ideas into actual profit for your business? Right now, you may feel like you're doing all the right things, and yet your efforts aren't creating more money for your business. Today, that changes. Our free 90-day profit planner has helped hundreds of creative entrepreneurs transform their income goals into an actualization strategy since 2019. You can download yours for free today. Just visit myawakening.co/profit. That's myawakening.co/profit. Now, back to the show. You know, I also think about when we share success stories of our clients, one of the things I never ever want to do is say, because of me, my client hit 400K this year. That is not true. I am not 100%, responsible for that. Actually, my client is predominantly responsible for that. And also what's even more important than that is the foundations that she laid prior to us starting our work together. And so absolutely, I'm going to break down some logistics of what we worked on, some things that helped to amplify her results and grow her numbers, but I'm not going to take responsibility of that just to show you that I'm going to help you do the same thing, because I can't actually promise that for you. It depends on this stage. You might actually be further along and hitting like 7-figure years. You might be, more in the beginning stages and you're working towards your first 50K year. I can't promise that to you. And I'm not going to do that just to look good and just so that you bet on me to spend money with me. The last thing that I want is a client coming into a container with me, having unrealistic expectations where they're set up for failure. That's going to lead to like a lot of like anxiety for them, financial strain for them. It's not going to lead to a good partnership. So, you have to think about like, what are the next steps? If you are marketing in a certain way, what happens when people actually get into a container? Are you creating like a true picture for them, like a realistic expectation for them? So as Jordan said earlier too, we are not telling you to disclose every nitty-gritty detail of your business at all. There are some brands that share like full financial reports and statements online, which I think is like cool and also crazy. And like, we don't personally feel compelled to do that. That's not really something we want to do within our brand. But it is to say that if you're going to share a piece of information or a statistic or a case study or whatever, if you're going to answer a question that's been asked, make sure that you're willing to go deeper and you're actually sharing the true answer to that. And you're not leaving tiny pieces of information out to position yourself a certain way, to look a certain way. And I think this is where it's also important for us to be informed. Like if you are a newer entrepreneur, to actually understand what certain like things mean. So for example, revenue does not equal profit. I remember when I was like early newbie in the online space, like I hadn't even started my business, but I was like watching and seeing what other people were doing. And like they were having all of these like high cash months, like huge revenue milestones from like courses and passive products and things like that. And I was just like, these people are bringing home like millions and millions and millions of dollars, but actually they weren't. That was the revenue. And so that's not the same as profit. That's not what the business is profiting. We don't know like who's getting paid for what, how much is going towards paid advertising. Because let me tell you, I've been behind the scenes of some businesses and you can be bringing home, you can be hitting huge revenue milestones and not really bringing money home. Like you're not actually paying yourself. It's a very real thing. Projections are not always actual figures. That's something to note. Reach does not equate to inquiries or customers. We've talked about that. So take everything that you see online with a grain of salt. If you are marketing yourself online, like again, let's figure out how can we bring more depth and context for people, because it's going to lead to a stronger community, a stronger sense of respect, and you're going to be operating out of so much more integrity as well. So at the end of the day, we want word of mouth marketing for your brand. Like we want people to be talking about you. We want people to be sharing about your business. We want people to be hyping you up, but we want it to be in a favorable light, right? Like we don't want people to be talking behind the scenes about how, you say one thing, but you don't actually do that thing, or you're marketing one way, but that's not the true experience. Like we don't want that happening. And it's so important to remember that when you're in business, when you're an entrepreneur, like you are in a leadership role. Like you are a leader, even if you do not feel like it. And you really have to ask yourself, like, what kind of leader do you really want to be? Like, what do you want to stand for? Not just in the open, not just in your marketing, not on stage, not when you're interacting in real time, but behind closed doors. Because like, as you grow a team too, people are going to see you behind the curtain. They're going to see you behind closed doors. And word travels. Like the truth always comes out. And the truth of it is you're a leader. You have influence over people, whether that's through your digital presence, your clients, your team. And we have to actually ask ourselves, what are we doing with this responsibility we've been given that's actually really sacred? Like marketing is influencing. And so how are you actually using that power for good? How are you moving in a way that is of integrity? How are you ensuring that you are walking the talk? You're not just talking and then not following through on things, or you're not embellishing the truth, or you're not just sharing half truths. Like, how are you operating out of integrity and using the power, the leadership role, and the influence that you have for good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I was thinking about your example that you were just talking about a minute ago about like you helped someone reach a certain financial milestone. Let's say like you used that in our marketing and was like, I helped this person get to like 400K this year. I can help you do it too. But what if a client tries to work with you, but they're at like a much newer stage in business and they're not actually ready to like hit that level of revenue? They're not ready for the responsibility of that yet. They don't have the structures in place for their business. They probably won't actually hit that financial milestone of like 400K. So then they're going to feel like you lied, like you set this unrealistic expectation, like you promised this certain thing and then you didn't deliver on it for me and my business. So I'm going to run away from you and all your lies and I'm going to tell everyone that I know that I had a negative experience with you. Like that happens. You might be painting an unrealistic picture of yourself and marketing yourself in a certain way. And then if you have the experience behind closed doors with this client and they don't have a great experience with you and you don't deliver on the things that you promised and you said you could do, they're not going to trust you and you're going to have really bad word of mouth. Like people are going to talk because they do. They're going to talk behind closed doors. This person's going to run over to this person and say, I had a really negative experience with them. They promised they could do this for me and they didn't deliver on it and you shouldn't work with them. And then you won't have more like repeat business. You won't have new clients coming in because of all of the negative word of mouth going around. So it's so important to paint a clear picture of what you can do for someone, to provide context, to paint an accurate depiction of like you and your brand and what you are capable of, because the truth will always come out. People always are going to talk, word travels, and if you are positioning yourself in a certain way and it's not entirely truthful, you're probably going to get kind of like caught later on. Like people are going to catch on that like this isn't right and you're not really operating out of integrity. You're not being like really honest with people in private or in public. I think that the most important thing is providing context and being honest in your marketing, as honest as you can be, to paint a clear picture of yourself, to operate out of integrity in private conversations behind closed doors, but also for the masses, like for all of the people in your audience, because word travels and it'll get around.
And that is where a lot of customers' journey with your brand starts. It's with your marketing. That's some of their first like early touch points with your brand. So what's the standard that you're setting? How are you communicating? What are you promising? What are you saying? Are you giving the whole context? Are you being transparent? Are you being honest? You know? And I'm someone, I don't like to promise specific like figures for clients. It's not an uncommon thing for me to be asked what's the, typical return on investment when working with you in a one-on-one container. And in cases like that, I am never going to say, well, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to help you make X, because I haven't seen the inner workings of their business. Like that's not an accurate, true promise that can really be like held, that can withstand, that's going to shake and crumble, right? So I always lean on, well, I haven't seen what's going on in the business. I don't have a full holistic understanding yet until I get in there with you. And I can tell you, like, I'll be in it fully with you. Like I'm there 110%. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be supportive. I'm going to like walk through XYZ with you. But I can't promise X. What I can do is I can tell you what some past clients have experienced while working with us, right? So little areas like that, whether you're on a sales call or again, you're out in the open on your marketing or you're in private conversations, where can you provide a little bit more context? How can you operate out of integrity and make sure that you are creating that realistic picture for your community? And maintaining integrity will always carry more value than impressing people. And I think that our space puts a lot of value on impressing people. But who cares?
Who cares?
Who freaking cares? You're often speaking to a ton of strangers and like you have nothing to prove. So maintaining your integrity, that's always going to be so much more valuable than impressing people. And when you toe the line between full truth and half truth, which is essentially a lie, to impress your community, that is just short-lived, very short-lived. It cannot withhold, it cannot stand. But when you provide depth and context and transparency, that goes really far with people. Like what Jordan was saying, people really do develop a true trust in you, a respect for your brand. And again, they feel like they can connect with you. They don't feel like you're so far out of reach that they can't understand and they don't get it. Mm-hmm. Not to mention that when you build your business on facades and half-truths, you can never, ever keep up that false standard.
Snaps. Dang.
You're going to be chasing, you're going to be striving, you're going to be aiming to prove all the time. That is going to catch up with you, whether that's how people talk about you or that's just how you feel when you are by yourself. And I think that's really an important point to consider. Like at the end of the day, do you feel good about how you're showing up? Do you feel confident in that? Do you feel like you're moving in integrity? Like, do you respect yourself? Or do you want to create this standard that you can never live up to? And you're just going to feel like the biggest imposter all the time if you're making yourself and your brand look a certain way that it actually isn't. And the key word is yet, like there are some things that you're going to grow into, but you have to stop trying to impress all the people and be all the things, especially when it isn't true, because that is going to burn you out. That's not going to be sustainable. And you're going to just feel like crap every day.
Yep.
We don't want that.
The deeper rooted issue here with the trying to impress people is really a lack of confidence in yourself, your abilities, and your business. And that might not be the case for everyone, but I feel like that is a very deep-seated issue when it comes to trying to impress people. You're trying to put up a front and a facade because you're not really happy with who you are. You're not confident. You're not confident in who you are or your abilities to help your clients. And so you're trying to put on a mask, wear this mask and put up a front that you are this and you're that when you're not, And we kind of touched on this in past episodes talking about confidence and the ego, but I feel like at the end of the day, trying to impress people, it's really a means of fluffing up your ego. And you're doing that in an effort to show your authority and to try to prove something to people. And like we talked about in our ego episode, the ego really is a mask that we wear. It's a facade that we put up. And in Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy, he literally says, ego is self-anointed, its swagger is artifice. And I feel like that is just so freaking good. I always want to quote that book because it's just so good. But I feel like that's the deeper rooted issue here when you're trying to impress and you're trying to flaunt all of your accomplishments and try to position yourself a certain way. You're not actually confident in who you are. So you're just trying to make it look a different way externally when there's maybe internal work that needs to happen. If you're trying to prove something to people, to your audience based on half-truths, which are kind of just lies, then you're building trust, quote unquote, trust with them based on something that's not entirely real, building trust on this wobbly foundation that's just going to crumble underneath you. I think there's a way that you can market yourself and your brand and your products. There's a way to do that and display your authority without fudging the truth or just flat out lying to people. You just have to be willing to get creative with it, get creative with your marketing,
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of wrap this up with some key takeaways for you guys, some action items that you can consider, some things to think about. So I think the first here is we want to encourage you to just assess your digital presence. And even more than that, really get a sense of, as you were listening to this episode, did you feel any of this in your gut? Did you just know, oh, I can do better there, or I can rise up higher here, or I really can provide more depth and transparency there? If that was you, we commend you. And we want to encourage you to act on that and to truly disrupt the way that you're showing up in the online space Look at your content, look at your presence. What opportunities do you have to weave in more context for your community? Because again, this doesn't make you any less. This doesn't lessen the amount of people that respect you, that potentially want to work with you. In fact, what you will experience, what you will feel, what you will see is that more people want to work with you. You're planting seeds, you're planting realistic expectations with those ideal clients and community members. You're going to be setting them up for so much more success, whether it's, in their own business as they take inspiration from your content, or in your containers as people opt in to work with you. When your marketing aligns with the experience you provide your clients with, people are astounded. And let me tell you, they should not be. They should not be astounded that you're delivering what you said you would deliver. But people are astounded.
That's true.
I think about our clients, and the feedback we receive is like, you have no idea how supportive this has been, or you have no idea, like, we're a couple months in and this is the best investment. Like, you actually follow through on all the things that you say that you will. You walk the talk. I've never experienced an experience like this before. The depth, the value, you're really in it with me. And I'm like, these are all things that I say in my marketing, but people are skeptical because people have been burned. So when you align your marketing with your client experience, people are going to be astounded, which that's just basic business acumen.
Yeah.
I promise you, if you have basic business acumen and human decency, people love you. They're astounded by what you've built. And it's sad because the norm in the space is to be burned. It's for people to say one thing and do another thing. It's for people to hype themselves up publicly, but not actually deliver behind the scenes. So who do you want to be known as? What do you want your brand to be known as? And how can you weave more value, context, and transparency into your marketing, making sure that it aligns with what people will actually experience with your brand?
Tea. That was so good. Amen. Oh my God. The second thing I wanted to touch on, get creative and strategic with the way that you're marketing yourself. I think we can all do this. One of our greatest strengths as entrepreneurs is being creative and inventive and thinking outside the box. So there's a way to market yourself without being sneaky or slimy about it. There's a way to do it. You just might have to put like a little bit more effort in and really think through, like, how am I going to position this to be well received by my audience, So we recently put together some Instagram story graphics highlighting a case study of how we acquired close to 100K from just one client. And in those graphics, I'm always trying to think strategically as like a designer, from a designer's point of view, like what is going to like entice people to keep reading, and what should I emphasize visually for them to like be enticed by this. So on the graphics, I made sure that the 100,000, 100K was like bigger, because people like numbers and they like seeing big numbers. They like seeing big revenue numbers. So made sure that was like visually bigger. And I also wanted to highlight the fact that we acquired that much money from just one client. But we also, on the graphics, were saying it was close to 100K, wanting to make it very transparent for people. And also we broke down in the story set how we acquired that money. And it was through this person working with us over multiple offers. So we like really provided all the context for that of like, this is how we did this. And it's honest. And it is, whoa, words. 1 second, regroup. It's honest, we're operating out of integrity, but it's also like, you just have to get creative with how you are presenting it, how you're presenting it visually, what's going to be the most enticing. People like big numbers. They like seeing stuff like that, but also we're providing a lot of context for people and going beneath the surface, digging deeper and providing them with the full picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good example because we're not saying that you have to shy away from all numbers. I think especially if you help your clients achieve anything numerically, they're going to want to see examples of that. They're going to want to know that. But when you share those examples, how can you provide a little bit more context? And again, not try to make it something that it's not. Mm-hmm. If I'm trying to think, someone would really be more motivated by having 100K from like one transaction. Well, That's just flat out not true. And that's just not what happened here. So I'm not going to try and spin this to like cater to that. I'm going to document in reality, this is what happened. This is how it happened. And so we literally broke down even the numbers that we acquired through various offers over years, right? And that, again, provides people with a little bit more context and transparency, which is what they're craving, because they want to know. If you're going to say, here's how we, hit 100K from one person, they want to know, okay, but how? So like actually give them the how and give them the truth of the how. And then the final thing here, practice taking everything with a grain of salt online. And better yet, just have boundaries with what you're consuming and whose content you're consuming. If you find that you are engaging with some people, they're sharing content all the time that's really, just firing you up in a bad way. They are potentially unethically marketing their business and somehow that, just disconnect, just turn it off, just mute, just set the boundary and focus on you, your brand, your leadership, your influence, what you want to share, how you want to share, what you want to be known for, and really just practice expanding your knowledge base, reading between the lines. Again, use critical thinking. And this is really applicable, especially if you're newer in business too. It's not to say that you have to be skeptical of everyone until they prove themselves, but you are in business. And there are some sharks in the business world. It's just how it is. And there are also some angels. There's some angels out there too. And we've experienced both. So you just have to, protect yourself, be open to, transactions and community and engaging with people. But, it's okay to be a little bit skeptical, and it's okay to not take everything as absolute truth and to ask questions. So be informed and just take everything with a grain of salt. Read between the lines.
Amen.
Ameneth.
Ameneth.
What is that from?
Aquamarine.
I love Aquamarine.
She goes as JoJo,
yes,
the actress. She said, Amen. I love that.
So good. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope that this sparked something inside of you. And again, we hope that this conversation just calls all of us as a collective higher when it comes to the way that we are marketing and representing ourselves online. We'll catch you in the next episode. See ya then.
Bye.
Bye.